Welcome to the 85th episode of the Reading and Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Rutherford. Stay tuned for my interview with Annamaria Alfieri, author of the historical mysteries Invisible Country and City of Silver. And I promise not to ask this in every episode, but I did want to ask again, if you enjoy these interviews, if you enjoy this podcast, if you could just take a quick 2 to 3 minutes and leave a review in iTunes, it helps other people find the podcast and the interviews. Otherwise, stay tuned for the interview. Thanks. Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Annamaria Alfieri, who is the pen name for Patricia King, and we can discuss that during the interview. We're conducting this interview at Thriller Fest in New York City. Annamaria's novel, Invisible Country, is a historical mystery set in Paraguay. It's been described as a cross between Isabel Allende and Agatha Christie. Annamaria, welcome to the podcast.
I'm very happy to be here with you, Jeff.
Sure. Well, if the listeners haven't heard about Invisible Country before, how would you describe the novel?
Well, it's a historical mystery. It takes place in Paraguay in 1868 against the background of a devastating war. And it involves the search for some lost gold, a dead body who's an extremely important person who was in possession of that gold when he died, and a group of Paraguayan villagers who are trying to save an innocent from being accused of the murder and the theft of the gold. So it's a kind of thriller, adventure, murder mystery, and there's a lot of romance in it too.
Great. Well, have you lived in Paraguay, or how did you decide to write a historical mystery with that setting?
Well, I write about South American history. My first novel, City of Silver, took place in the Spanish Viceroyalty of Peru in 1650. And I take an interest in South American history, and I like the fact that I write about periods of time and events, in important historical events, that most North Americans don't know anything about. And I think that, I'm sure that mystery readers really like to learn about something other than whodunit. They like to read novels that tell them about something in the background. And I find South American history fascinating. The thing that drew me to this particular period is that this war killed 90% of the males between the ages of 8 and 80 in Paraguay. And the story really begins with a priest going up to the pulpit to tell his congregation, which is predominantly women. There are 50 women and I think 6 men in the church. And he tells the women that they should forget about the rules of the church concerning marriage and get pregnant any way they can. And then the real trouble begins.
So how did you originally get interested in South American history?
I have a friend who is in the development business. He's worked in development for the Peace Corps, for Catholic Relief Services, for USAID in South America. And he started to tell me stories like the one I just told you. And I thought, wow, I don't know anything about this. And I was already focusing on writing murder mysteries, but not historical and not this period, when I thought this would be a great place to set a murder mystery. And so he drew me into that, and now I'm deep into South American history.
And so, given that, what was the research process like for you? Was it kind of intimidating?
Not really. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a historian. I was a businesswoman most of my life. And I just read and trusted that I would be able to get a feel for what was going on. This novel was actually going to be my first one, and I went to visit Paraguay. I have an intrepid, wonderful husband who drove a rental car all over Paraguay with a woman who couldn't speak Spanish. And so we went there to get the feel, the smells, the air of Paraguay. But the rest of it I learned from books in the New York Public Library.
And did you have anyone who is familiar with that historical period read the novel before it was published and give you any feedback?
No.
No?
No, I didn't. First of all, I think it would be hard for me to find anyone who was familiar with it. And I read probably 29, 31, I forget, as the count was up in that range, books about it. Mm-hmm. And so I think I got a feel for it. And of course, the history doesn't need to be 100% accurate.
Right.
I try to really give an accurate account of what went on, but I serve the story. To me, this is not a history book. It's a story. It's a story, and it's got to move, and it has to be a page turner, and it has to have a lot going on. And history doesn't usually move at the pace that a thriller does.
Sure. Well, I know that as we mentioned earlier, Annamaria Alfieri is a pen name, and I know that you published nonfiction books about business and careers under Patricia King, your real name. Have you always wanted to write mysteries before you wrote these two books?
I wanted to be a novelist when I was 9 years old. But I was born in Paterson, New Jersey, in a working-class neighborhood, and kids who grew up there in the 50s didn't really aspire to be starving artists. We wanted to get a good education, get a decent job, and get out of there, and that's what I did. But I never stopped being in love with fiction, writing fiction. I studied literature in college. I really was an aspiration for a long, long time before it became a reality. And I love my job now.
That's great.
It's the only job I've ever had that just fills up my whole skin.
That's wonderful. So what are you working on now? Are you working on a third historical mystery?
The third one is pretty much done. Mm-hmm. I was very, very fortunate, especially for a person who doesn't write a series. I mean, my series is South American history.
Right.
Mysteries, but it doesn't have continuing characters. It's not the same time and place. I wasn't smart enough to research one time and stay there. I'm jumping from country to country. But after City of Silver, my publisher gave me a 2-book contract for the next 2. So this one is Paraguay in 1868, and the next one is Buenos Aires in 1945. So this and it's fun because the people have cars and telephones.
Yes. Great. Well, given your experience thus far, what tips or advice would you offer for aspiring writers or someone like yourself who always wanted to write fiction in terms of getting published?
The best advice I ever heard, I heard in an Edgar Award acceptance speech. It was a young man years ago. I wish I could remember who it was, but he said that he held up his Edgar and thanked his publisher and the people that people thank. And then he said, but I have to thank my wife because every time I said, I give up, she said, a real writer wouldn't quit. And that's my advice. If you're a real writer, you probably can't quit. No, I couldn't have quit. Somebody could have held a gun to my head and said, you're never going to write another word of fiction. I would have I might have died, or I might just have written it in my head and not written it down. I just think that way.
Yeah. Well, what books, fiction or nonfiction, have you read lately that really made an impression on you that you would recommend, that kind of stuck with you?
Well, I read a lot of nonfiction. Right now I'm working on what I hope is going to be the 4th novel, and I'm reading about Giuseppe Garibaldi in South America, but I don't know that that's relevant to this conversation. I'm reading Yrsa Sigurdardottir's wonderful book called Ashes to Dust. And she's Icelandic and, like me, writes about exotic places. And I like to read about exotic places. I'm in the middle of that now, and it's a really wonderful, dark and delicious. So that's one. And let's see. I've been reading the series about Brazil by Leighton Gage. Leighton is a wonderful writing colleague, and every once in a while I turn around and he's written a blog about some South American historical character that I think I have to save this because I could use it. And he has a wonderful book called A Vine in the Blood. That's a really good book. I don't know.
Have you looked at any other mysteries that are set in South America, or are you nervous about doing that?
No, I'm not. I like to read fiction about South America. Mm-hmm. I like to see other people's take on the terrain, not so much for plot or that sort of thing, but the details of how they bring, especially an American reader who probably doesn't know much about what goes on there, how they bring it alive for that person, because that's what one of the things I really want to do. I love traveling and I love being in unusual places, and I want to be able to pull my reader in there with me so they can feel like they're really walking around in the place.
Given that you have a unique setting for your novels, have you gotten any feedback from readers, talking about, wow, I really enjoyed learning about this or experiencing the setting?
That's one of the things that readers always tell me that they enjoy. When City of Silver came out, it's about a city that still exists. It's at 13,500 feet, and it is in the Altiplano of what is now Bolivia. And people wrote me letters saying, I want to go there, I want to see it. And you're going to cause a tourist boom in Potosi, just because I fall in love with the places, and then I try really hard to communicate that to people.
That's great. Well, where can people find you online?
www.Annamaria Alfieri, Alfieri, it's all one word, .com.
And I'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. Well, again, we've been speaking with Annamaria Alfieri, author of Invisible Country. The book is available in bookstores now, so you should check it out. Annamaria, thanks for doing the interview.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Sure.
If you've got a passion for pumpkin, you've got to get to Dunkin' and pick these up. Our new pumpkin cream cold brew. Smooth, bold cold brew topped with velvety pumpkin cream cold foam. And our delicious pumpkin spice signature latte. Rich espresso topped with whipped cream, caramel drizzle, and cinnamon sugar. And our perfectly pumpkin donuts, munchkins treats, pumpkin muffins, and more. That's how we pumpkin at Dunkin'. Pick your pumpkin at Dunkin', like our new pumpkin cream cold brew, pumpkin spice signature latte, and our perfectly pumpkin treats. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.
Hear that? Is that America cheering or a sausage patty sizzling to perfection? It's time to cheer for Egg McMuffin and fresh cracked eggs at McDonald's. It's time to wake up to the aroma of freshly baked biscuits and treat yourself to a real honest-to-goodness morning meal. Breakfast, it's on at McDonald's. Now enjoy a large iced coffee for just $2. Add a breakfast sandwich to make a meal. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.